Korea today is paradoxically a house that stands divided.
One of the most tense military standoffs in the world.
The most tense place on the planet.
A higher level of tension.
When you first think of the DMZland, what do you envision?
Obviously the first word that comes to mind is tension, because you know the North and the South, the tension between both of our countries are very strong.
The Korean Demilitarized Zone is a strip of land dividing North and South Korea, serving as a buffer zone between the two countries. It was established in 1953 by the provisions of the Korean Armistice Agreement, following the Korean War. The perceived tension in the area is undeniable and was what enticed me to visit. On February of 2019, a group of artists and myself traveled to the DMZ with an organization called Nine Dragonheads. The goal of the trip was to conduct research that would inform their art and open up a dialogue surrounding migration and borders. Before the trip, we were conditioned by the media to believe that the area was dangerous. But once we arrived, we were greeted with a small theme park and a ticket booth and hordes of tourists.
The fact that a lot of people are going there as a tourist spot, and I just find it really ironic. So my name's Sain Cam. I am an international student here at IS Manila. I am Korean. Yeah. I've never personally visited because every time I go to Korea, it's never like, oh, I want to go to the DMZ, because it's just something that I think it's like how a lot of people from France don't really visit the Eiffel Tower. I think it's kind of something like that.
My name is Preston Spradling. I teach high school English here at International School Manila. This is my 5th year here. I am from kind of all over the place. My parents are also international school teachers, so I grew up in international schools. I suppose I would say I have a couple of connections to the DMZ. One of those is that a close friend of mine worked for the United States Department of State. In addition, my connections to the DMZ, I would say, are as somebody who also has a degree in history, and as a reader and analyst of history, and as somebody who's taught several works of fiction and nonfiction about the Korean War as well. I would say that the thing that really fascinates me is that I see the DMZ referred to in particularly Western media, particularly I would say even American media, as being about 50,000 kilometers wide and as being like landmines all the way through, and as being the scariest of all possible scary physical borders between two places. And the impression I get, again, from my friends at the Department of State who've been there and others, is that this is not really the situation, right? I think the United States media in particular often writes about the DMZ as if it separates North and South Korea, and that these two countries are different in ways that are insoluble and fundamental. And I don't get the impression that that's necessarily true. I would say that the DMZ is a good example of one of those things that is a product of choice rather than permanence.
I'm Jane Dyer. I'm an Australian artist, and I live between Portugal and Australia. The DMZ, we've just had a taste. We've had 2 days in the DMZ. It's opened up perhaps another lens to it, because I think I've become very aware of the huge, what might be seen as a huge tourism around the DMZ. Adds to the popularism of what I call DMZland, like Disneyland. So I'm very, very interested in really what the fracture is between these two countries, and what is that thing that can be healed, and can it be healed, and what is it? And it's not my role or right to provide solutions to that.
The tension between North and South Korea, I think, is always a bit more political rhetoric than it is always reality. I think the fact that there are tour groups who go to the DMZ is a good reminder that despite the way sometimes things get reported, or that leaders who are opposed to one another speak in public, the reality on the ground is often much quieter and more prosaic, and you can go and take pictures. And it's always an amazing thing to compare the fact that people can go as tourists and recognize that really that's not quite the level of tension, again, you can compare to that in the media, the way it's reported.